Ironwood Zoo had always been a place of controlled chaos. Children screaming in delight, parents groaning in exhaustion, and animals existing somewhere between captivity and the wild. On most days, the primate exhibit was the star attraction. Visitors crowded against the reinforced glass, watching the chimps swing, groom, and sometimes throw handfuls of their lunch at unsuspecting onlookers. Dr. Emily Carter adjusted her glasses as she observed the troop from the staff-only catwalk above the enclosure. The afternoon sun cast long shadows over the artificial habitat, a mix of climbing structures, trees, and rocky outcrops. Below, Leo, the dominant male, sat near the moat, peeling a banana with deliberate slowness. "You're a thinker, aren't you?" Emily murmured, making a note in her journal. Leo was different, smarter than the others, more aware. He didn't just react to his environment, he analyzed it. His dark eyes often lingered on zookeepers longer than the others did, as if measuring them. The troop was stable for now, but something in her gut told her that wasn't going to last. Down near the service tunnels, Danny Holt struggled with a crate of fresh fruit. The newest hire at the zoo, he'd been thrown into the deep end of primate care without much preparation. He hated working near the chimp enclosure. Something about Leo freaked him out. Jonas Reed, the senior primate keeper, smirked as he leaned against the doorframe. "You planning on feeding them one grape at a time, kid?" Danny sighed, wiping sweat from his brow. "I just don't want to piss them off." Jonas chuckled. "They already don't like you. Best you can do is not make it worse." Danny swallowed hard. "Leo, he's the one that got transferred here, right? From another zoo?" Jonas's face darkened. "Yeah, and for good reason." "You don't want to know what he did." Danny hesitated. A deep, guttural hoo-hoo-hoo echoed from the enclosure, cutting through their conversation. The other chimps were getting riled up, and at the center of it all, Leo. His eyes locked onto Danny through the bars, unblinking. Danny shivered. Something wasn't right. Something was about to go very, very wrong. Danny stood frozen, gripping the crate of fruit so tightly his knuckles turned white. Leo's gaze remained locked on him, intense, unblinking, almost calculating. The other chimps hooted and shrieked, but Leo remained unnervingly still. Jonas clapped Danny on the shoulder, breaking his trance. "Relax, kid. He can't get to you from there." Danny exhaled shakily. Yeah, I know. I swear he's watching me differently than the others." Jonas shrugged. "He's smart. Smarter than we'd like. But as long as we stick to protocol, we're fine." Danny wasn't so sure. They finished preparing the feed, chopped fruit, leafy greens, and a few protein-rich snacks, before wheeling the cart to the secure feeding area. The Ironwood Zoo prided itself on its reinforced enclosures. The chimp habitat was surrounded by thick, shatterproof glass on the public side and industrial-grade steel mesh on the keeper's side. There was no way for a chimp to escape. At least, that's what they all believed. As Jonas opened the feeding hatch, Danny felt a creeping unease. Leo was already there, waiting just beyond the steel grate, staring at them with those dark, unsettling eyes. Jonas slid the food tray into the chute and locked it shut. "All right, eat up, you ugly bastards." Leo didn't move. The other chimps rushed forward, grabbing at the food, hooting in excitement. But Leo remained motionless, his focus still on Danny. Jonas frowned. "What's his deal today?" Danny took a step back. "I don't know, man. I don't like it." Jonas sighed. "You're jumpy for no reason. Leo's been in captivity his whole life. He knows the drill." But deep down, Danny wasn't convinced. As they left the service area, he cast one last glance at the enclosure. Leo was still watching, and then, so subtly it almost went unnoticed, he bared his teeth, a silent, knowing grin. The following morning, Dr. Emily Carter arrived early to check on the primates. She had spent the previous night reviewing footage from the security cameras. Nothing obvious had happened, but Leo's behavior was strange. He was testing something, watching the zookeepers, observing how they locked the doors. Emily shook off her unease and made her way to the chimp house. As she stepped into the keeper's corridor, she was greeted by Marcus Shaw, the head of zoo security. "Morning, Doc," Marcus said, sipping his ever-present cup of coffee. "Got an interesting report for you." Emily raised an eyebrow. "Oh?" Marcus gestured toward the enclosure. "One of the security cameras glitched out last night, right near the primate house. Might have been nothing, but it was weird." Emily frowned. "Could just be a technical issue." "Yeah," Marcus said, scratching his chin. "But here's the thing. The wiring wasn't messed up. The connection was physically cut." Emily's stomach dropped. "Cut? By what?" Marcus shrugged. "That's the million-dollar question." A chill ran down her spine. They walked toward the enclosure, where Jonas and Danny were already starting the morning feeding. Danny looked worse than usual, dark circles under his eyes, shoulders tense. "You okay?" Emily asked. Danny forced a chuckle. "Didn't sleep great," Jonas snorted. "Kids still freaked about Leo." Emily glanced toward the enclosure. Leo was perched high on the artificial rock formation, watching them. His fingers drummed idly against the stone. The other chimps went about their usual routine, grooming each other, climbing, eating. But Leo, he was waiting. Emily swallowed. "We need to keep a closer eye on him." Jonas raised an eyebrow. "You think he's planning something?" "I don't know," Emily admitted, "but I don't want to take chances." Danny exhaled. "Yeah, no arguments from me." As they turned to leave, a loud bang echoed through the keeper's corridor. They all jumped. The sound had come from the enclosure. Leo had slammed his massive hand against the steel mesh, his gaze locked onto Emily now. His lips curled back, exposing powerful canines. A warning. And for the first time, Emily had the distinct, terrifying feeling that she was no longer studying Leo. He was studying them. That afternoon, the zoo was busy with visitors. Families crowded near the chimp enclosure, children pressing their faces against the glass, parents chatting idly. Emily was back in her office, reviewing past records on Leo. He had been transferred from another zoo after a series of aggressive incidents. The reports were vague, too vague. She called up the last zoo's records department. "I need any additional notes you have on Leo's behavioral history." The woman on the other end hesitated. I don't think I can release those." Emily's grip tightened on the phone. "Why not?" A long pause. Then in a hushed voice, the woman said, "You should get rid of him before it's too late." The line went dead. Emily's blood ran cold. At that same moment, a scream tore through the zoo. She bolted from her office, sprinting toward the primate house. Chaos. Visitors were backing away from the chimp enclosure, shouting in panic. Jonas was already there, trying to calm the crowd. Emily pushed through and saw it. The glass, a deep crack splintered across the reinforced viewing window, and on the other side, standing perfectly still, was Leo, a bloodied chunk of metal in his hand. Danny stumbled beside her, his face pale. How did he... Emily's mind raced. The enclosure was built to withstand immense force. Chimps were strong, but not that strong. Then she noticed the security hatch near the top of the enclosure. The screws. Some were missing. Her stomach dropped. Leo hadn't just hit the glass. He had loosened the frame, and he was smiling. A deep, guttural growl rumbled from his throat. Emily turned to Jonas. "Get everyone back, now!" Jonas hesitated. "Now!" And then, with a final, ear-splitting crack, the glass shattered. Leo lunged, and the nightmare began. The moment the glass gave way, time seemed to slow. Leo moved first. His powerful body launched forward, muscles coiling like steel cables as he shot through the shattered barrier. A storm of glass fragments rained down, catching the sunlight like tiny knives. Screams erupted. Parents grabbed their children, scrambling away from the enclosure in blind panic. Some ran, others froze, paralyzed by the sight of a 300-pound chimpanzee hurling himself into the crowd. Danny barely had time to react before Jonas shoved him back. "Run!" But Danny didn't move. His eyes were locked on Leo's face. Not rage, not confusion, understanding. Leo wasn't just attacking, he was choosing, and he had planned this. With terrifying speed, Leo grabbed a nearby stroller, flipping it effortlessly as the toddler's mother yanked her child to safety at the last second. He roared, the deep, guttural sound vibrating through the air. Then he grabbed a man by the leg and yanked him off his feet. The man, one of the zoo's janitors, screamed in agony as Leo bit down on his forearm, canines sinking deep into flesh. Blood sprayed onto the pavement. "Jesus Christ!" Marcus Shaw, the head of security, shouted as he rushed onto the scene, hand on his radio. "We have a code red. Escaped primate in the zoo. I repeat, code red. Armed response needed now." Emily's heart was pounding. She had never seen a chimp behave like this. Leo wasn't just attacking out of fear or instinct. He was hunting. She turned to Danny and Jonas. "We need to contain him." Jonas, pale-faced, shook his head. "With what? We don't have anything strong enough to—" Leo's head snapped toward them, his dark eyes locked onto Emily. Recognition, and then he charged. Emily didn't think. She ran. Her legs pumped as fast as they could, adrenaline taking full control. Behind her, she heard the heavy, thunderous gallop of Leo's hands and feet hitting the pavement. She had seen it happen in nature documentaries, how chimps in the wild hunted smaller primates. That was what this felt like. She was prey. Danny, running beside her, gasped, He's gaining." Leo was faster than a human, stronger than 4 men combined. A blur of black fur and muscle closed the distance alarmingly fast. A split second before Leo could grab her, Marcus tackled him. The security officer hit the chimp's side like a linebacker, sending them both sprawling across the pavement. Emily skidded to a stop, chest heaving. Marcus scrambled back, reaching for his baton. "Stay down, you—" Leo moved with inhuman reflexes. His massive hand snatched Marcus's wrist before he could swing. And then, in a horrifying display of raw power, Leo bent Marcus's arm the wrong way. A sickening crack echoed through the zoo. Marcus screamed. Emily felt her stomach churn as Leo bared his teeth, blood staining his lips. Jonas yanked Emily's arm. "We need to move!" They bolted toward the service tunnels, a secure underground system used for staff movement across the zoo. If they could make it there, they had a chance. Danny slammed the security door open, panting. Go, go!" Emily and Jonas dived inside. Danny turned to follow, but Leo was already there. The chimp grabbed Danny by the back of his shirt and yanked him off his feet like a rag doll. Danny screamed. Emily lunged forward. "Danny!" Leo flung him. Danny's body slammed into a metal railing and he collapsed to the ground, unmoving. For one horrible moment, everything was silent. Then Leo looked up at Emily, a slow grin, deliberate. He stepped forward. Emily grabbed the door handle. Slam! She locked it just as Leo's body collided against it. From the other side, the chimp shrieked in rage, pounding against the reinforced steel. The entire door shook with every hit. Jonas grabbed Emily, pulling her deeper into the tunnel. "We have to get to the control room, now!" Emily's heart hammered in her chest. Danny was gone. Marcus was probably dead. And Leo. Leo wasn't just loose, he was hunting. The emergency lights flickered overhead as Emily and Jonas sprinted through the underground staff tunnels. Leo's distant howls echoed behind them, growing closer. Jonas's breath was ragged. "The security station is up ahead." Emily pushed forward, sweat dripping down her forehead. They burst into the small control room, slamming the heavy door shut behind them. Jonas locked it. "That'll hold, right?" Emily wasn't sure. The room was small, lined with security monitors displaying various parts of the zoo. Some cameras had been knocked out. Others showed visitors still hiding in gift shops, bathrooms and storage areas, trapped. But one screen made her blood run cold. Leo. The security feed from the staff hallway outside their room showed him standing perfectly still, watching the camera, watching them. Then, with deliberate precision, he reached out and ripped the camera from the wall. The feed cut to static. Jonas whispered, "Oh my God!" A metallic bang rattled the door. Leo was here. Emily's mind raced. He wasn't acting like a panicked animal. He was thinking, problem-solving. And worst of all, he was enjoying it. Jonas grabbed the radio. "This is Jonas Reed. Leo has breached the tunnels. Marcus is down. Danny is..." His voice broke. "We need an armed team down here now." Static, then, "Jonas, is that you?" The voice was weak, faint. Emily snapped toward the speaker. "Danny?" A pause. "Then help me." Emily's stomach twisted. Danny had been thrown like a doll. There was no way he could have survived that. Jonas's hands trembled. No, that's not possible." Then something scratched against the door. A new sound, not pounding, not rage, knocking, slow, rhythmic, knock, knock, knock. And then Leo's voice, low, deep, impossibly human-like. "Help me." Jonas dropped the radio. Emily's vision blurred with terror. Leo wasn't just attacking, he was learning, and he was playing with them. From the other side of the door, Leo laughed. The sound of Leo's laughter sent ice down Emily's spine. It wasn't a natural chimp noise, it was mocking, deliberate. Jonas's breathing was ragged. He stumbled back from the door, shaking his head. No, he's not supposed to be able to do that." Emily swallowed hard, pressing her back against the desk. "Jonas, chimps can mimic sounds, but this..." She couldn't even finish the sentence. Knock, knock, knock. The sound was slow, deliberate. Jonas grabbed a chair and jammed it under the door handle, reinforcing the lock. Then, silence. Emily held her breath. And then, the doorknob twisted, slowly, carefully. Leo was testing it. Jonas backed up, eyes wide. He knows how doors work. Emily's mind was racing. He had watched them every day, observed everything, and now he was using it against them. Jonas grabbed the emergency tranquilizer gun from the wall. "If he gets in, we put him down." Emily didn't argue. A loud bang against the door. Another, the metal began to dent. Leo was using his full strength now. Emily's heart pounded. They needed to move. She frantically searched the room. Security schematics, radios, weapons, no, keys. And then her eyes locked onto the maintenance hatch in the floor. "Jonas," she grabbed his arm, "the crawl space. We can get to the other side of the zoo through it." Jonas hesitated. Another bang against the door. He nodded. "Go." Emily yanked open the floor hatch, revealing a tight, dark maintenance tunnel used for electrical work. Jonas climbed in first, squeezing through. Emily followed, slamming the hatch shut behind her just as, crash, the door gave way. Through the tiny slats in the hatch, she saw Leo's massive shadow spill into the room. He moved slowly, calm, in control. Emily held her breath. Jonas grabbed her arm and whispered, "Move!" They crawled. The metal tunnel was tight and suffocating, barely wide enough to move through. The air smelled of rust and dust. Behind them, a deep, guttural hoo, hoo, hoo echoed through the vents. Emily's stomach dropped. He knew he was coming after them. They crawled faster. Jonas whispered, "There's an exit near the veterinary clinic. If we can..." Thunk! Something hit the metal behind them. Emily flinched. Jonas froze. Silence. Then, another thud, closer. Leo was in the vents. Emily clenched her jaw to keep from screaming. He was following them, hunting them. Jonas whispered, "Go, go, go!" They crawled faster, scraping their elbows and knees against the rough metal. It was getting hotter, tighter. A junction ahead, 2 paths, left or right. Jonas made a split-second decision and veered left. Emily followed, heart hammering. Behind them, metal creaked. Something wasn't right. Emily turned her head, just in time to see a massive black-furred hand shoot through the vent behind them. Leo grabbed Jonas's leg. Jonas screamed, thrashing, "He's got me!" Emily lunged, grabbing Jonas's arm and pulling with everything she had. Leo's grip tightened. Jonas kicked hard. His boot slammed into Leo's face, making the chimp snarl in rage. Jonas kicked again. Leo lost his grip. Jonas scrambled forward, gasping. Behind them, Leo let out an ear-splitting scream, a sound of pure fury. Emily and Jonas kept crawling, faster, faster. Finally, an exit hatch. Jonas kicked it open and they fell out onto the floor of the veterinary clinic. Jonas slammed the hatch shut. They collapsed onto the floor, panting. Jonas looked at Emily, his face pale. "We're gonna die here." Emily wiped sweat from her forehead. "Not if we kill him first." Jonas stared at her. "You want to kill Leo?" Emily's face hardened. "He's not just an animal anymore." Jonas swallowed. Outside the clinic, the lights flickered. Leo was still hunting and they were running out of time. They didn't have much left, no weapons, no tranquilizers, no backup. Emily looked around the clinic. Scalpels, syringes, veterinary tools. Jonas grabbed a bone saw. Emily took a scalpel and a syringe of elephant tranquilizer. If they were going to die here, they were going to make sure Leo went down with them. Then, a sound outside. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. Emily's grip on the scalpel tightened. Jonas whispered, "He's here." The clinic doors rattled. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Then, the doorknob turned, slowly. Silence. Then, in a low, impossible voice, "Help! Me?" Jonas whimpered. Emily's hands trembled. Leo knew what scared them, knew how to break them. The lights flickered again. Jonas whispered, "We're dead." Emily clenched her jaw. "Not yet." And then, the door burst open. Leo charged. The door exploded inward, slamming against the wall with enough force to crack the glass cabinets inside. Leo lunged. Emily dove to the side, just barely dodging the massive chimp's charge. Jonas wasn't as lucky. Leo slammed into him, sending him crashing into the metal exam table. The impact knocked the wind out of him, and Jonas collapsed to the floor, groaning in pain. Emily's heart pounded. She had the scalpel in one hand, the syringe of elephant tranquilizer in the other. Think. Leo whirled toward her. His face was wrong, not just an animal anymore. His eyes gleamed with something almost human, something cruel. He took a step forward, slow and deliberate. Emily backed up, holding the syringe tightly. If she could just get close enough. Leo grabbed a metal stool and flung it at her with terrifying speed. Emily barely ducked in time as it shattered a cabinet behind her. Leo charged. Emily dodged left, but Leo anticipated it, his massive hand clamped around her wrist. She screamed as he lifted her off the ground, slamming her against the wall. The scalpel clattered to the floor. Leo bared his blood-stained teeth, growling low in his throat. Emily struggled, but his grip was iron. She still had the syringe. With the last of her strength, she jammed it into Leo's neck. The needle sank in. For a second, nothing happened. Then, Leo shrieked, a horrible, ear-splitting scream of rage and pain. He let go, stumbling back, clawing at his own neck. The tranquilizer was taking effect, but it wasn't working fast enough. Leo turned his wild eyes on her. Emily scrambled backward, slipping on blood-streaked tiles. Leo charged again, and then Jonas swung the bone saw. The serrated edge sliced into Leo's arm. Leo howled in pain, whirling toward Jonas. He swung wildly, backhanding Jonas with terrifying force. Jonas hit the ground hard, Blood pooled beneath him. Emily saw her chance. Leo was weaker now, his movements sluggish. The tranquilizer was working. She grabbed the scalpel from the floor. Leo turned toward her again. Emily lunged. The scalpel sank into his throat. Leo choked, his black eyes wide with shock. For the first time, he looked afraid. His massive body swayed, and then, finally, he collapsed, dead. Emily staggered backward, shaking, gasping for breath. The clinic was silent. It was over. Leo was gone. But at what cost? She turned to Jonas, who lay motionless on the floor. "Jonas," she whispered. No response. Tears welled in her eyes. Then, a weak, ragged cough. Jonas was alive. Emily let out a shaky laugh. It was finally over, or so she thought. The sun was rising over Ironwood Zoo. Emergency responders swarmed the area, tending to the wounded, securing the exhibits and taking Leo's body away. Emily sat on the steps outside the clinic, wrapped in a shock blanket, watching as they wheeled Jonas toward an ambulance. He was bruised, bleeding, but alive. Danny was gone. Marcus was gone. Half the zoo was destroyed. A detective crouched beside Emily. "You okay, Doc?" Emily let out a hollow laugh. "Not really." The detective sighed, closing his notepad. "Witnesses say Leo planned this, that he watched, waited." Emily's stomach twisted. "He did." The detective studied her. "Chimps aren't supposed to be that smart." Emily swallowed. "We underestimate them. We always have." The detective nodded. "Well, you're lucky to be alive." Emily didn't feel lucky. She stared at the ambulance doors as they closed behind Jonas. Then, a whisper of movement. A shiver ran down her spine. She turned toward the transport truck where Leo's body had been loaded. For a brief moment, she could have sworn. His fingers twitched. Her blood turned to ice. No. It was over. Right? 1 month later, Ironwood Zoo was closed indefinitely. The Leo incident had made national headlines, sparking debates about chimpanzee intelligence, captivity ethics, and security failures. Lawsuits were already piling up. Emily had given countless interviews, but none of them truly captured what had happened, because no one wanted to believe the truth. Leo wasn't just an animal gone rogue. He had been thinking, planning, learning. And the worst part, Emily didn't think he was the only one. She sat alone in her apartment, staring at her laptop screen. The glow of the security footage reflected in her tired eyes. She had stolen it before the zoo shut down. No one else had seen what she had. She pressed play. The grainy footage showed Leo's enclosure 2 nights before his escape. He wasn't sleeping. He wasn't eating. He was practicing, testing the locks, watching the guards, loosening screws on the feeding hatch. But the worst part? The very last frame before the camera cut out. Leo sitting perfectly still, looking directly into the lens. And then he smiled. A slow, deliberate grin. Emily slammed the laptop shut, her heartbeat hammering in her chest. Her hands were shaking, because Leo was dead. But what if he wasn't the first? What if he wasn't the last? Somewhere, in some other zoo, another chimp was watching, waiting, learning. And one day, it would happen again. Outside her apartment window in the distant trees, a low, guttural hoo-hoo-hoo echoed in the darkness. Emily's blood ran cold. She didn't dare turn around, but somewhere out there, something was watching her, and it was laughing.